Chiefs, Lions, week 1. I mean,
Woo!
Wow. That probably my first reaction. Wow.
Yeah.
So excited. That is amazing. You want to talk about the pros of it? Your prime time. It's the first game of the year. All the hype is going to be around that game. Defending Super Bowl champs. You get to go out and just let it go. Week 1 in Arrowhead. And here are the cons.
Now I was going to say, now let's get to the cons.
Andy Reid in September. Fuck my life. Patrick Mahomes in September. Fuck my life. Andy Reid, in general, in September, is a problem because, well, they let everything loose, and you're not really prepared. It's a new scheme. Not that it's a new scheme, but they got new plays drawn up. They have ways to attack you, but that's actually a pro for Detroit. And I think the pros really favor Detroit in this situation. They have no pressure here. They're not the defending Super Bowl champs. They don't have a ring ceremony. It's not a home game for them. And you already went into the schedule before you even knew when they were playing, thinking like, yeah, it's probably a loss. It's probably a loss. We're away to Arrowhead. Scratch it.
Right.
But now it's the first game of the year. You have Ben Johnson as your offensive coordinator. You got Dan Campbell really encouraging and empowering him to really take control of this offense. And what's going to happen is you're going to catch Kansas City off guard defensively. They already lost, I believe, Frank Clark this offseason. They're going to make shift and rework their team and their defense. And their defense will probably start to peak around week 10, week 11, like they did last year. But to start the year, Kansas City's going to give up 26, 27, 28 a game.
Right.
And the Lions are going to be there to take full advantage of it. I actually think it's a very favorable matchup for Detroit.
And we know what happened last time Goff faced Mahomes. It was one of the best games in NFL history.
Yeah, we don't have to go that far. I mean, come on.
Now, but I'm just saying, it's facts. Now, last time Goff faced Mahomes, it was one of the most electric games in NFL history. But this is a big test for the defense. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing. I mean, the offense is majority the same. Yes, you're not going to have Jameson Williams the first 6 games, which is upsetting. You have David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, which, again, excited to see those guys. But the real test is defensively. You're on the road. You're in Arrowhead. You're facing Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, not to mention Travis Kelce, who I believe is the best tight end of all time. This secondary specifically, yes, the defensive line, yes, the linebacking core, but this secondary is, despite even the Chiefs losing Juju last year, got 900 yards, one of the most productive wide receivers. He's gone. He's with New England now. So I'm curious to see who steps up for the Chiefs with this new secondary. It's a big test. We just got done talking about Cam Sutton. This is a test. Super Bowl champs. Again, maybe you catch them in their first game off a hangover, but it's still the Chiefs in September with Andy Reid.
What's the sign of
terrifying.
a good coach? All right, and before I even get to the sign of a good coach, what was your Achilles heel last year at Detroit? Starting off 1-4, 1-6 eventually. That prevented you ultimately from getting to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
The good teams, the Mike Tomlin coach teams, the John Harbaugh coach teams, typically Sean McVay, Andy Reid coach teams, come out swinging in September. Not to say the Lions can't, but that is something they failed to do under Dan Campbell. In September, I believe his record is 1-7.
Yeah, it's not great.
And this year, it's got to be 2-2 at the worst, and you better have some good damn reasons, but 3-1 is going to be the expectation, and we don't know the schedule yet, so that'll dictate a lot of it, but still, you're going to be favored against every NFC North team, home and away, in my opinion. At least I think you should be. So I'm looking at the schedule. I'm looking at week 1 and saying, you know what? September matters more than ever. We talked about it yesterday, which is funny. Like, what's the ideal September look like? Well, now that you got Kansas City week 1, you can really send a message early on.
Oh, yeah.
Show your intent. And again, it's week 1. Yes, the Chiefs will have the same amount of time. They'll have the same creativity that you can expect from an Andy Reid football team, but you have that too. You have Ben Johnson. You're going to have the ability to catch the Chiefs off guard. A defense that's going to be learning how to play together. It's still very young. They started 10 rookies on defense last year. So, yeah, they're the defending Super Bowl champions, but they're vulnerable. They are vulnerable, especially early on in the year when their defense is not going to be probably as good as it's going to be by week 7, week 8, week 9. I love the matchup for the Lions. I absolutely love it. We definitely have to throw a party for this one. I mean, my goodness.
And if you look at the Lions' just road schedule in general, there's a lot of tough games on there. So that's why we talked about this whole offseason. the youth of the team. Will this affect him going forward? How much pressure can you trust this team to handle these expectations? Again, with Dan, you'd assume so. But, man, open the season up against the Chiefs. I don't care who they got at wide receiver. They can have Adam Baydoun. Yeah, I mean, you got Patrick Mahomes out there.
Don't sleep on me.
I mean, Adam will win a couple 50-50 balls at Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Sam Flannel.
You put me in for one game, I'll tell you Jameson Williams' career mark.
Oh, my God. All right. Okay, I knew you'd take it somewhere.
Come on, I had to. It was an
I set
open
you up
shot.
for that one,
it was free. It was a free throw.
Yeah.
Come on.
But Sam Flannel, I mean, let's be real here. You're Patrick Mahomes. Me and you, we argued last year about him still being the number one quarterback. What are your thoughts right now? I mean, how terrifying should Lions fans be right now facing Mahomes week 1?
Well, I don't know if there's any scenario where it's terrifying, because the Lions could conceivably lose week 1 and even not look great, and it's still house money at this point, because let's not get it twisted. Arrowhead, when the Chiefs are bad, is one of the toughest places to play in the NFL. And this is not Arrowhead when the Chiefs are bad. This is, I'm not overstating this, one of the toughest road challenges to open a season ever. You've got the Kansas City Chiefs in a stretch of winning and dominance, which is one of the best in NFL history. 5 AFC Championship appearances, 2 Super Bowl wins, another Super Bowl appearance and a loss. And you're playing them at night on the road in week 1 when they're having their Super Bowl ceremony, basically. This should be a coronation for the Kansas City Chiefs. But on the other hand, that's a lot of emotion going into that game for the Chiefs. I could see the Lions sneaking up on them and maybe at least making this a game. And if it's close late, who the hell knows? I actually think the Lions getting their toughest game out of the way, week 1, over and done with, in a sort of a weird circumstance where it's Thursday, early game, first game of the season, I think that could work to the Lions' advantage. I think it is a much more favorable matchup than maybe playing them randomly week 12 at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I really think that the Lions can at the very least make this close. And if they win, if the Lions go into Arrowhead and beat the dominant Kansas City Chiefs, just imagine how on fire this city would be. Just imagine how those expectations would just grow exponentially. But on the other hand, you're kind of playing with house money. I'm really looking forward to this matchup. I think it's going to be a good one.
I mean, last year they got the best team in the NFC in week 1. And although the game wasn't necessarily as close as maybe the final score predicted, you're right about that, Sam. It's different for the Chiefs. This is just another Thursday night game for those guys. They played in a ton of primetime games, and you saw last year what the Lions looked like in Green Bay in primetime for one of the biggest games of the entire year. Everyone showed up, even though they had one of the youngest defenses and just overall a young roster. They still showed up and they beat Aaron Rodgers. But this is different. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. These are the Super Bowl champions in Arrowhead. It's a different environment, but it's a hell of a test. And it's a good measuring stick to see where they stand this season, because we talk about expectations. If you go in and at least battle with the Chiefs, I mean, even if you lose and it's close, you're still going to get a ton of respect. Not trying to, pat them on the shoulder already. You want to go out and win, of course. But regardless, I mean, the Lions just can't get blown out. I think that's the number one thing, because the Chiefs, no doubt about it, Patrick Mahomes, we know what he can do. Andy Reid.
Here's the problem.
It's a good test for this roster, a young roster.
I gave you all the pros, and you guys have added to it, and that's great and all. Last I checked, Patrick Mahomes has only lost a handful of games at Arrowhead.
I mean, yeah, it's
literally a handful.
It's not.
It's tough. It's September. It's Andy Reid. He's going to throw things at you that you haven't seen probably in 3, 4, 5 years. God knows how far back he'll go. And who God knows what he'll create. But I think you have that, maybe not at the same level, but I think there's an advantage, Flannel, with Ben Johnson early on. I think that's what you need to see this year. And you kind of did last year with, I mean, my goodness, they're putting up 35 a game, top 3 offense in the NFL at the time, number 1 in most categories to start the year, but they were 1-3. And yeah, it was the defense that let them down to an extent, and Jared Goff untimely turnovers, and of course Dan Campbell coaching decisions. But hey, you expect the offense to come out swinging week 1, even without Jameson Williams. That has to be an advantage. And if the defense is 50% better than it was last year, 3-1's a real possibility, and I think they have a chance at least in Arrowhead. I really believe that.
And you'd rather, I mean, let's be real here. If you had a preference to play the Chiefs week 1 or week 13, I think we'd all agree you'd want to play in week 1. coming off a Super Bowl win. Like, that's just me, but who knows? Maybe you'd rather play him late in the season. I wouldn't. Because by that time, now Patrick Mahomes knows who he can trust and who he can on his wide receiver core, and they're going to be clicking. Same with the Lions, but I'll take him week 1 if I had a preference. I mean, especially in Arrowhead, it's a tough place to play regardless, so you'd rather face them right off the bat.
These rookies
just get
are
it out the way.
Walk into Arrowhead for their first NFL game on Thursday night. Prime
Yeah, they'll
time.
be fine.
I just think that, like, what a way to start.
I mean, typically the Thursday night openers, I know during the season Thursday night kind of sucks, and based on the leaks that are being reported, the Lions will have 3, Thanksgiving, Green Bay week 4, and then KC week 1. But the week 1 primetime NFL opening kickoff game is typically a shootout. I mean, we've seen the Bucks Cowboys a few years ago. Rams Bills was eventful. They're always good, man. They're always really good games, so you got to enjoy them. Kansas City, Detroit is going to be excellent.